Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock, Drogheda. Yesterday I was talking about Athens and Greece, and I was talking about the Battle of Salamis and how God allowed the Persians to be defeated in that battle against all the odds, which created the optimum world conditions for the gospel to spread around the world after Jesus was born. Now, of course, the gospel then did arrive in Athens. The Apostle Paul arrived in Athens, and we can read about that in Acts chapter 17. And like anybody, any tourist who arrives in Athens, Paul went to the Acropolis, the big ruins that stand up on a massive rock looking over the city. I remember the first time we were going to Athens, Janice and I were all excited because our hotel said you could see the Acropolis from the hotel. It wasn't until we got there we realized that you can see the Acropolis from just about anywhere in Athens because the city's comparatively flat, and then you've got this big massive rock in the middle of it with the Acropolis stuck on top. Well, anyway, Paul went there and he went to a place called the Areopagus, which simply means a big rock. And Paul went there and he talked to the crowds would gather there, and they would listen to various philosophers and people trying to spread different ideas. And Paul went there to preach the gospel. And Paul talked to them about the Greek gods. And he said, you've got so many gods. He said, in fact, I see you've got an unknown God. On my way here, I passed an altar that was erected to an unknown God. In fact, archaeologists have discovered such inscriptions in a number of places in the ancient world. There were other ancient authors referred to such similar altars and inscriptions in Athens. And archaeologists have discovered at least one that was actually in Rome. That was an altar to the unknown God. Agnostos Theos is the unknown God. Now, Paul knew what he was talking about here. And I love the way whenever Paul talks about the unknown God with these learned Greeks, he makes it sound like he's just stumbling blithely into something that actually struck a chord with him. But Paul's actually been, as we would say in Ireland, he's been very cute. He knew exactly what he was doing here because Paul knew what the teaching about the unknown God was. He wasn't just some dumb tourist that happened to see an altar. Paul knew that there was a tradition, a legend, a story about a Greek philosopher called Epimenides. And that Epimenides had averted disaster when there was a terrible plague was afflicting Athens by encouraging people to offer sacrifices, not to the gods that they knew. He said, look, there's another God. There's a God that you haven't discovered yet who's greater than all these other gods. And if you offer sacrifices to this unknown God, he will stop this plague and save the city. And that actually happened. They offered sacrifices to the unknown God in the way that Epimenides told them to do, and the city was spared. The plague stopped. Well, Paul knew all about Epimenides, and we know this because Paul actually quotes Epimenides twice. Once is in one of his epistles, in Titus chapter 1 and verse 12, where Paul actually says, he's talking about Titus, who was a pastor at Crete, and the trouble he was having with the Cretans, and says even one of their own Cretan prophets says that they are liars, and that was Epimenides. That's what he said in one of his poems. And so Paul actually knew about Epimenides and refers to him as a prophet of the Cretans. And also Paul quotes him in this very same speech in Athens in Acts 17 verse 18, where he quotes Epimenides, "In him we live and move and have our being," which actually is a song that I remember as a young Christian, people singing this song as a praise and worship chorus. In him we live and move and have our being. And I thought, wow, imagine that. They're singing a song which is from scripture, but is taken from a pagan Greek poet. You know, God can even out of the mouths of babes bring forth wisdom and praises, and even from unbelieving poets. And so anyway, what Paul was saying was this. He's saying, you know, there's an unknown God, and this unknown God is greater than all the other gods you worship. And now I'm going to tell you about this unknown God. And he talks about the God of Israel. He talks about the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. You see, the thing is this: God has put certain ideas, God's put certain things into the heart of men. The scripture says God has put eternity into the heart of men. And God had set into the hearts of people in Athens a legend that Paul could come along at just the right time and take that and use that as an illustration to share with them the glory of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Which, when you come to think about it, is what we're trying to do with these Take Fives every day. We take everyday events, we take stuff that's going on, things we find in the scriptures, and we use it to bring home a spiritual principle. And it's comforting for me to think that the Apostle Paul was doing the same thing 2,000 years ago. May God bless you today. May you continue to find the truth of God wherever you look in this world. And I pray that he will bless you today. And join us next time for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.